When you're setting the tone for your scene, think about not just describing trees and bushes and buildings. Think about how you can evoke that emotion from your reader and the mood that you want them to have using the establishing shot. So that is one of the stationary shots. I want to get into a few examples of close-up, medium shot, and long shot, because I think we just sort of take for granted that we just describe things in detail when we're up close. But we want to do this very specifically. We really want to be in control, just like a filmmaker, to get our readers to notice exactly what we want them to notice. Here's a scene from Linda Clare's novel, The Fence My Father Built. And Linda Clare uses a close-up shot to have her character look at things in the closet. And then she moves into an extreme close-up. So again, this is the kind of idea of this Hitchcock technique, where you might be having a character look at something, but then when you want the reader to notice something in particular, you're going to bring your camera in closer. And you can see how this is done. I went to the cramped room Nova and I shared to decide on my own clothes, crammed into the closet with all sorts of boxes of Ludi's sewing supplies and who knows what else. This would be my first real social outing since we'd arrived. A few of Ludi's church ladies had stopped by with covered dishes and a jar of last year's homemade applesauce. I slid a boot box to one side. It fell over and its contents tumbled out. Instead of crochet hooks or balls of yarn, a pile of papers and old photos lay at my feet. On a yellowed photo, the likeness of Joseph Pond stared up at me. He stood on a rise overlooking the creek. Shadows cut across the landscape and my father's profile. I picked up the snapshot and smoothed it, running my fingers across his face. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to pray for the first time since I could remember. I felt awkward and clumsy, but I asked for guidance anyway. Before I could stop it, a tear splashed on the print. I wiped it away and wished I'd come here while he was still alive. This was what was left of my father. Old pictures, clippings, cocktail napkins scrawled with drawings, and a letter on lined paper written in a strong, upright hand. And then she reads the letter. And then she says, I carefully folded the letter and placed it in my wallet for safekeeping, and I laid the other things back in the box and slid it back to where I'd found it. I wondered if Aunt Ludi had planted it there for me to find. So you can see she didn't go on and on for pages with all these details, but you get this sense that the camera is looking into the closet, and her camera in her mind's eye is noticing, pulling out the box. But then when she opens this box, you can see that she brings this photograph up close, and I like the touch of the tears like dropping on the photograph, because you feel that emotion, and there's that close-up, intimate feeling in that shot. So this is the kind of thing that you do with a close-up. And then when you want to show a little bit more detail than just something very close-up, for instance, if you need to show a few people in a scene, you're going to want to pull back a little bit and have more of a full shot or a medium shot. In The Hunger Games, there's a scene where Katniss is up in this tree, and she's being chased and trying to stay alive. And below her are some of the other tributes who are in the Hunger Games with her. And this is right after she's sawn through this branch of these deadly tracker jackers, and she's about to drop them on these people. And of course, with this type of a situation, she can't do a close-up because she's 20 feet up in a tree, right? So all she can do is notice what she can see from 20 feet away and what she can hear from 20 feet away. And she does this very well on this medium shot. Okay, and just as the knife cuts through the branch, I shove the end of the branch as far away from me as I can. It crashes down through the lower branches, snagging temporarily on a few, but then twisting free until it smashes with a thud on the ground. The nest bursts open like an egg, and a furious swarm of tracker jackers takes to the air. It's mayhem. The careers have woken to a full-scale tracker jacker attack. PETA and a few others have the sense to drop everything and bolt. I can hear cries of, to the lake, and I know they hope to evade the wasps by taking to the water. It must be close if they think they can outdistance the furious insects. Glimmer and another girl, the one from District 4, are not so lucky. They received multiple stings before they're even out of my view. Glimmer appears to go completely mad, shrieking and trying to bat the wasps off with her bow, which is pointless. She calls to the others for help, but of course no one returns. I watch Glimmer fall, twitch hysterically around on the ground for a few minutes, and then go still. The nest is nothing but an empty shell, and the wasps have vanished in pursuit of the others. Excuse me. So notice what details Katniss can and can't see with their medium shot. She's close enough to watch the teens get stung, and she can hear what they say and hear their cries of pain, and she can see them, swatting at these insects. But she can't, hear everything or see everything. It's done very well because it's faithful to where her camera is positioned, and that's what we want to do when we're doing these different camera angles. When I start getting ready to lay out a scene, I will be thinking of what's my purpose of my scene, what is my high moment, what am I building to, and what details am I going to need to show? Am I going to be needing to see things close up? Am I going to be needing to show a crowd? Am I going to need to pan through a crowd and find somebody? These are all sort of camera techniques, so keep this in mind as you're laying out your scenes, how you might storyboard this, basically. Here's another example of a medium shot. In Peace Like a River by Leif Enger, we have 11-year-old Reuben Land. He's in his bedroom with his brother, and it's a very key moment in the book. He's with Davy. Excuse me. It's late, the brothers are in bed, but trouble is brewing and has been for a while. So Reuben startles at the sound of the floorboards creaking downstairs, and he trembles as he hears someone approaching the room. So then, the steps came forward. They stopped at my door. I felt more than heard someone's hand upon the knob. Then Davy spoke from beside me. Switch on the light. His voice so soft he might have been talking in his sleep, but he wasn't. He was talking to whoever stood incorporeal in the doorway. Switch it on, he commanded. And the next thing, we were all of us bright soaked and blinking, me beneath my quilt and Israel Finch standing in the door with a baseball bat in one hand and the other one still on the switch, and poor stupid Tommy all a squint behind his shoulder. Davy was sitting up in bed in his t-shirt, his hair askew. Somehow he was holding the little Winchester he'd carried in the timber that afternoon, and holding it comfortably, elbows at rest on his knees, his cheek against the stalk as if to plink tin cans off fence posts. It is fair to say that Israel had no chance. I'm not saying he deserved one. He stood in the door with his pathetic club like primal man squinting at extinction. How confused he looked, how pink-eyed and sweaty. Then he lifted the bat, the knothead, and Davy fired, and Israel went backward into Tommy Baska, and Davy levered up a second round and fired again. The round made a bright black raindrop above and between his two eyebrows. Swede came flying from her room. She saw, besides Finch, Tommy Baska on his stomach with his hands a-quiver toward the door, and Davy stepping up behind him. Tommy clawed the door, bawling incomprehensibly, and his eyes rolled, and there was genuine terror inside his voice, and I knew with certainty he was seeing all the devils waiting for him. Standing above him, Davy levered up a third cartridge. I ought to have looked away, but I couldn't. He lowered the barrel to the base of Tommy Baska's skull. For an instant, my brother seemed very small, like a stranger seen at a clear distance. He showed no tremor. He fired. Tommy relaxed. So Reuben's close enough to see all that action. It's a medium shot. He's got the two boys coming into the room. And again, he's very much in character because as an 11-year-old boy, he's noticing things like the way that the bullet looks as it hits the skull, excuse me, the bright black raindrop. And he's paying attention to the sound of the voice, the terror in his voice. These are all things that you can notice when you're at a medium shot. You wouldn't notice from a long shot away. I think what's also very interesting is this last little bit. For an instant, my brother seems small, like a stranger at a distance. It's almost as if his camera pulls way back, and now his brother is sort of long, far away, because now all of a sudden he's seeing his brother in a new light. It's almost like he doesn't know his brother. His brother's a stranger. This sweet brother of his who just blew away 2 kids in his bedroom. So that also has a kind of a metaphoric camera angle or shot, if you get that. Thank you. Appreciate the water.